Welcome back. Republican California Congressman Devin Nunes is suing Twitter for $250 million. He says Twitter shadow banned conservatives and censors content based on political views, and he has experienced it personally. MRC's Newsbusters reports the suit also goes after a handful of Twitter users who ran fake accounts impersonating Nunes' mother and making claims that he was racist, had white supremacist friends, and more. He also claims the Twitter shadow ban was also meant to derail his work as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Nunes reportedly has plans to sue other tech giants as well. Joining us now with more is the managing editor for Newsbusters, Curtis Houck. Welcome, Curtis.
Good to be with you.
Tell us, what can you tell us about this alleged shadow ban?
Right, so he filed the lawsuit and then joined Sean Hannity last night, and he says that he's, as you laid out, shadow banned him, lawful claims of abuse that Twitter ignored, and they censored content based on his ideology. So much so that his content, and he has tens of thousands of followers as a member of Congress and the chairman of a powerful committee, was not able to be shared by other users in terms of being shadow banned, so people weren't able to see it. So that's one of the reasons why he's filed the $250 million lawsuit. And of course, as you laid out there, one of the more bizarre parts of this whole thing is that he's going after Twitter users who ran fake accounts impersonating his mother, which is just absolutely unbelievable. And the reason that he went after Twitter, to quote him here, he says, "They are the main proliferator and they spread this fake news and slanders news. They need to come clean. They are not a public square. They are content developers." And that's one of the interesting things that we've seen over the last few years with Twitter, is this question of, what does this public square look like? For some people, the way I'd like to think of it, sometimes Twitter feels like a WWE wrestling match or something, instead of an actual debate of ideas where certain storylines are played off one another, where people's content are weighed more heavily than others, and there's a behavioral ranking that Twitter has, and that they've claimed here that Nunes' ranking was not hurt at all by any of this. Or any of the things that he was saying. And Nunes is obviously arguing the opposite.
Well, talk a little bit more about these alleged fake accounts. Is Nunes the only one, do you think?
Oh, no, I highly doubt that. We've seen smaller instances. We've seen people be banned for just the most innocuous reasons. I had a colleague, Vic Fondacaro, banned without any warning for a tweet that he had about CNN's Don Lemon last year. And it was only because we knew to reach out. We knew someone who knew someone able to reach out at Twitter and figure out what was going on. We've seen this happen at the Daily Caller. We've seen this all across conservative media. We saw this just this past week with Sean Davis at the Federalist trying to tweet about Lisa Page, and that links to his tweets were not being included and the people couldn't see. So this is a pattern of behavior, and that's the real issue here that we want people to take away here. It's one thing if one person has a problem, but it's a pattern of behavior all the way down, from elected officials like Devin Nunes to a staff writer here at Newsbusters, and that's really what the issue is here. Just whether it's banning people for really no reason whatsoever, or is heinous as some of the things that Devin Nunes has gone through, being accused of treason, being called Benedict Arnold, threats being made against him, being having white supremacist friends, and then obviously then impersonating his mother, which is something that, you shouldn't be able to do in terms of impersonating people without making clear that it's a parody. So Twitter has some issues on its hands, needless to say, and this is the latest example of that, in what's been a really bad week for the news media and Twitter writ large, because then you throw in the lawsuits by the Covington student Nicholas Sandmann against the Washington Post and CNN.
And Curtis, do you think these tech giants, not just Twitter, do you think they're working a leftist political agenda?
Oh, absolutely. You just think about where they are. They think, they're located in Silicon Valley, right below, Nancy Pelosi, San Francisco. That whole corridor is some of the bluest areas of America. So just from a geographical standpoint, the people that live there and all the universities there, the bias is automatically there. And you have people, that make a lot of money. They're very insulated. They have very lavish lifestyles. And really, they have no sense of what goes on in flyover country or views that they think runs so counter to their narratives that it's something that shouldn't be allowed in the public square. So that's why you're kind of seeing some of these bans here. Just there's geographical, and then there's also political reasons as well.
Well, tell us about the Free Speech Alliance.
Yeah, so that's one thing that's kind of come together recently that we're trying to just raise awareness about that. One of the things I like to say when I talk about this issue is that it goes back to the First Amendment and how the First Amendment is not just something for the news media. Contrary to what you may see on CNN or some of these other news outlets, the First Amendment applies to all of us. And the government won't make any laws establishing state religion. There's freedom of religion, and then there is freedom of the press and freedom for us to assemble, both physically, virtually here, and online. And so I think that's what's really important here, and what some of these movements are trying to do is underline the importance of this. And I think Newsbusters will try to stand for the First Amendment here, because we think people should be able to make their case, so long as you're not doing something like advocating violence along those lines, or truly defaming someone, where you make intentionally false claims knowing that it's false. But other than those extreme examples, the point is that the First Amendment is something that we in this country are afforded that other countries are not. And we see what's going on in New Zealand in the wake of the terror attacks, that they're looking to curtail freedom of speech online. And that's really something that's dangerous. And it plays into the hands of terrorists like the one in New Zealand that want to divide people.
And Curtis, just quickly, all of these tech giants, I guess they're pushing back and denying the claims of Nunes and others who claim bias against conservative causes. Right,
exactly. Read a quote here from product lead Kayvon Bakepor. Quote, "Our behavioral ranking doesn't make judgments based on political views or substance of the tweets." In regards to Nunes. So they're denying this as well. So we'll see what happens here. But in most of these cases, or really all of these cases as far as we've seen, Twitter has really denied that this has happened, or they just say that, especially when someone's banned or suspended, that they violated their terms of service. And obviously, if anyone sees what a terms of service is, it's like buying a car or, something, or buying a house. The terms of service are just, as big as the Bible. So it's huge. So trying to understand that is, it's really tough to say that which part did they violate here. And that's really difficult here without some transparency. And that's really what we're looking for more than anything else.
Okay. Well, Curtis Halleck with the Media Research Center's Newsbusters. Curtis Halleck, thanks so much for your insight, sir.
No problem. Anytime.